There is this Preach video I did want to watch. Okay, it's 10 minutes. It's yes, you should play The War Within, what you need to know. Let's watch it.
We are just a few hours away from The War Within reaching everybody's hands, but trust me when I tell you, you have to approach The War Within differently than any other WoW expansion, and here is why. Most of you guys know by now, I'm critical when it needs to be, and I praise them when they do things right, and we go to extremes with that on occasion when they get things really wrong, but also the opposite when they get things really.
Hey, I was in there. I went there. I was there in that room. I got to go see it when I went to PreachCon, and now I am watching the video and I'm seeing it on a video, but like it was a real place. Okay, anyway.
Really right, and it's left me with a good relationship with Blizzard as always being fair. So I'm going to be fair with you now. The War Within. This will miss the mark with you if you treat this like any ordinary WoW expansion, because it is not. It is a different direction. They are going to try something new, and the way they've done that is by keeping all the things you know the same, and then really trying to get you to care about the fact that this is the World Soul Saga. It is a narrative-driven World of Warcraft expansion.
Yeah.
I cannot stress that enough. The focus of The War Within is on the story. And I know you are, and I am, habitual skipper. Habitual press escape as soon as the cutscene pops up. Get out of here. Get out of my way. I need to level. I've seen Gingies leveled 17, level 80s. I need to do that as well. Listen, guys. The War Within runs differently. Levels are irrelevant. I cannot stress that enough. They're so irrelevant. You can cap a character in The War Within in like 2 hours, semi-casually. If you're just doing some dungeons, you will just get level 80. It's not the focus at all, any way, shape, or form. What I would recommend to you, if you don't listen to anything I say, is come into The War Within, as I did, and I had to retract. Believe me, if you saw our last video, I treated the story like I ordinarily would in World of Warcraft, and came back with fresh eyes, and God,
Yeah, so I saw his other video where he said that he started out taking it not very seriously, and he was joking and being, you know, kind of not giving the story the attention and care that it probably does deserve. And he realized he was doing that, stopped, changed his perspective on it, and then came back to it with like really trying to give it a fair shot this time, you know, not treating it like every other WoW story that you just kind of hand wave off and don't give a shit about. And this seems to have had a really positive effect.
So glad I did. The pacing is significantly better. I'm not going to spoil anything here.
He's not spoiling.
What's happening is a big deal, and it's going to be an even bigger deal going forward. If you saw Chris Metzen's interview, you know, or if you don't know, I'm going to tell you,
I watched
that The War Within was already in production long before Chris Metzen came back. It was already planned and things were doing, and from what we can gather, or infer, what we can infer from Chris Metzen's word during his interview is he came in, he looked at it, and it was World of Warcraft expansion, the World of Warcraft expansion. And he's like, this ain't going to cut it. This ain't going to cut it anymore. We can't do this. And the reason we can't do this is you guys screwed up, people left, and then they went to places like Guild Wars 2, to Destiny 2, to Final Fantasy 14, and people realized it doesn't need to be this way. The grass was greener elsewhere. And you can have an absolutely epic, monolithic storytelling experience that people care about and brings millions of people to tears and joy in an MMO. And that's where we need to be going, because our gameplay is king. That's where I sit in that camp. WoW's gameplay is king, and it's one of the things I've been loving coming back and playing. But our narrative is full shambles.
Honestly, yeah. Combat in WoW is super responsive, and even for me, playing on an EU server, I do use exit lag, but I really don't have any issues. Like, I don't feel like I don't really notice a huge difference. I feel like the game is really snappy, and I guess they just have pretty good net code for the game. But a lot of my friends who have been trying out WoW Combat for the first time are really enjoying that, like the very fast-paced reactivity of combat, and you kind of like fly. I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants a lot of times in a dungeon or a raid, because you just gotta act quick, man. Though life comes at you fast. Those swirlies do not play. There's not. It's just very different. With FF14 has its strengths with combat, especially now with Dawntrail, where it's very methodical and it's very rhythmic, and you can plan out with there's a pace to things that I think is very unique and cool part of raiding in FF14 when you have a coordinated group. There's just nothing like it. It's almost like synchronized swimming in some ways, but not that I know what that is. I always imagine that's what it's like, you know. You feel like all these parts of the machine working perfectly together. Only FF14 can really pull this off, and it's very cool when you get to experience it. But with World of Warcraft, I feel like I get kind of more exciting moments on an individual level from just playing my class on my own, like from a solo content, because it's not like, obviously there's interplay between classes, but it doesn't feel like as much of a symphony as it is in 14. So like I said, they're very different. It's kind of apples and oranges, but I feel more like the combat is all about me getting everything right in my rotation.
It's fallen apart. So what have they done to solve it? What should you do, in my opinion, to have the best time in the War Within? Forget about levels. Literally, the campaign alone. If you just do the campaign, which is what I did, and it's really fun, just do the campaign. Pay attention to what's going on. It's really short. Genuinely really short. Yeah. Even if you're paying attention and listening to what's going on, it's going to take you a few hours to get through the campaign. And that's going to leave you around level 76, 77. And you're going to be like I would be in like Shadowlands and BFA, like, God, like I haven't even capped and I've finished the story. They unlock everything for you as soon as you finish the campaign. Your renown's unlocked. Your daily quests are unlocked. It's all there. You're at the end game. You're done. You don't need to worry about it at all. But I guarantee you, if you pay attention to what the hell is happening in this expansion to set up the next 3 expansions, you're going to have a really good time. You're going to actually care about some of these characters. You're going to actually forget all the memes that are going around with people who are like, oh, World of Warcraft story. Yeah, I was in that camp as well.
I think it's going to change minds. This is really turning over a new leaf for World of Warcraft, and I'm really happy to see it, because I always cared about WoW's lore. When I first got into WoW, I was doing roleplay, and I've always read up on the lore a lot from outside the game sources. But to finally see more people want to discuss those topics is really exciting and cool. Like earlier today, we were just looking on the WoW subreddit, and someone was like, ooh, what are these roots that are in Ashkahet around the Haranir people? Like, what's going on here? If you go there, then you get the Emerald Dream sleepiness. And this is something that a lot of people are actually interested in discussing. Like, is that Eluna here? Like, are these roots of a world tree? This is questions people care about now, that I feel like it was such a more niche fraction of the community that cared about these kinds of things before.
God, this is kind of cool, because they've done a really good job. I've struggled, and I've been looking to find the holes here, because there's always holes. There's always in the World of Warcraft story some weird, illogical leap, something that doesn't fit because the gameplay of the systems and the things they want does not mesh with the story at all. And you're like, well, this doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. There's none of that in the War Within. It's actually carefully and delicately taken, and it's subtle. There's no massive exposition cutscene.
Yeah, it's subtle.
Where it's like, okay, we need to accelerate the story in about 30 seconds, including nearly every narrative plot twist that would happen in a movie for an hour and a half. It's like the anti-Kojima, right? This time, the cutscenes are spread out, they're short, and they're just little pushes in the narrative to where to go. The biggest issue I found, literally...
Yeah, that's why a lot of these character developments feel natural. And that's something that I'm probably going to be talking about this in my video I'm going to be making, writing today. about my impressions of the War Within, but it's one of the reasons why the development feels like I believe it, because people don't just change overnight. People don't just change on a dime. But when you can see the crumbs along the way of how one opinion might have changed slightly because of something someone else said, and it makes sense that that person talking to this other person would have affected them in that specific way, would have shown them something that maybe they didn't think about it from that angle before. I think that's all been handled extremely well, and with such a tiny amount of space to do it in. It's not a very long campaign, so for them to accomplish everything that they did is pretty remarkable.
The issue I found as somebody who cares very much about video game stories is just that they really, really need to work on a couple of things, and you'll notice this. One is their end zone bosses are just out in the world and they're never a threat. That needs to change to scenarios like yesterday. It has to change. It's terrible. It's boring. You often turn up and it's already dead, and these people just stood around scratching their ass waiting for the enemy to spawn, and then you kill it in like 3 seconds. On my death knight, I can't even pop all my cooldowns before these bosses die. It's so stupid because you're supposed to be afraid of them. That is a gameplay issue they need to sort. Not a narrative issue, a gameplay issue. The second thing, which is rife in Dragonflight and it's here as well, they really need to up their lip sync technology. The rendered cutscenes that they've put together carefully are one for one. They're magnificent. They're so good. There's inflection, there's emotion in the faces.
Yeah, those are really
They're
good.
amazing. And then there's the ones that take place in-game, where they basically just do /talk, and they're doing this. And it doesn't add up, and it really takes you a second to be like, okay,
Yeah, they really do need to work on the animation for different emotes and stuff for these.
Just have to ignore the fact that their faces don't make any sense and kind of listen to what's going on. That needs to change for Midnight. That's fair. It has to change. Or
I think that going along with that and improving some of those animations for general for conversations, that should also be something that benefits players. Like if they could give players more emotes as well. They started to do it a little bit. You have read, like you have this map. But I think that they need to add a lot more if they're going to actually try to focus on conveying emotions in cutscenes. This is an extremely good point, and it's something that FF14 does phenomenally. FF14 has some of the best emotes in any MMO, and that's one of the reasons a lot of people find it very easy to express themselves in a roleplay scenario because of it. But you can get across some of these more subtle, nuanced emotions from better emotes. So this is a really, really good point. In fact, I was sitting and I was saw a little it was not a cutscene, but it was a dialogue where Magni is talking to Anduin in the inn. Like you first arrive in Dornigal and you can go into the inn and you'll see them sitting down and you can do a stay while and listen. It's a very good conversation. It adds a lot to both characters. It's voice. It's very nice to listen to. But if you watch them animating while they're talking, sitting, you can see that the models themselves are struggling a little bit with it. So Anduin is trying to talk to Magni and he's like, he's trying to move his hands, but the hands actually, as he's doing this, are getting kind of distorted and almost looked kind of buggy. So they really, really need to work on these.
At some point in the War Within. I'm not saying you need to pre-render everything, but there should be better lip sync technology for what's going on, because we know it exists. We know it exists, which can be easily better. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just has to be better than what it is.
I think that's fair.
Other than that, I'm here to just tell you guys, like, if you give this a chance, I think you're going to have the best World of Warcraft experience possible, because we know that Metzen and his team and his change of direction is really going to start showing its face after this. In his words, he came in, the War Within was set, he changed some things to push it in a direction, but most of the stuff was already built, so couldn't affect there. But going forward, more and more of that is going to shine in. And if this is what they've done
if this is what they did without a lot of his influence,
this ball rolling, it's really good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I never, ever thought I would sit here, after all the years I've been doing World of Warcraft content, and tell you, pay attention to the story. Don't just start skipping. Give it a chance one time. And I truly believe you're going to have one of the better World of Warcraft experiences you can ever have.
That's what everybody's doing.
Everything
now.
is waiting for you.
I'm so
Everything's
happy.
locked down in terms of character progression for a little while yet. You'll have heroics at best.
This is so
and if
cool.
you really need a bunch of alts, you can cap them ridiculously quickly in the War Within. It's not necessary. And trust, once you play this campaign, I think you'll be more than tempted to go back and do the side quests. There is a side quest in the first zone that is doing the rounds now as more and more people are discovering this narrative-driven expansion that is kind of one of the best storylines they've ever written. Really is. Like, it actually, like, evokes a lot of emotion. And I'm not talking about laughing at Runus because he's scratching because he's a drug addict. I'm talking about something that's like, oh my god, this is pretty heavy. It's heavier than we've seen in World of Warcraft for a pretty long time. Most of the stuff is left in the background.
I don't want to say a lot because it's not spoilery.
No, this is more full on. It's great. It's really good. And if this falls flat on its face because of the typical World of Warcraft behavior that I'm guilty of as well, which is like, I just want to collect quest, go, kill thing, carry on, you're going to miss out on so much. You don't need to read every single quest text that happens. You don't. You'll get the general gist pretty quickly of what's going on, and then you can carry on. I would also say, this is crucially important, guys, there is a lot of stay a while and listen stuff in between the quests.
Those have all been really peak. Usually there's a little white chat bubble icon above the character's head. You don't want to miss any of these. And honestly, if you just want to, you will have a ton of opportunities to run through on your other characters, like on alts, and just pick up all the quests and blaze through it. But I really do think, yeah, for that first character experience, you really should just take the time to go through the story.
A couple of the important NPCs will be like, you can listen to more things going on, and they're really good as well.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
They add a lot to what's going on.
They're really good.
And they're worth it. They're absolutely worth it. I know you're not gaining XP at an accelerated rate. Do it, because you're going to get invested, and that's what they're aiming for. And I will be genuinely really sad if after this we have the kind of atypical comment is, the story is trash, I skipped through it. So you don't know what the story is really, right? I mean, and that is something we see all the time in a lot of games. Is like
in a lot of games, yeah. There are people that have done that. Yep. Yeah, no. Some people will just skip through the whole story and then say it was bad. Well, it's probably not that common though. Yeah,
story was crap. I just skipped through it. Right. So the story is not crap. It's not. It's good.
It's not crap.
It's really good. If they keep on this path, we're in for a really good time with the World Soul Saga. And I couldn't be happier. After my issues with World of Warcraft, God knows I was looking for some reason to really enjoy and discuss what's going on. And we will have a full spoiler video coming up. But that's my message. That's literally what I want to put out there. Come in with that mindset when it goes fully live in the next few hours.
Wow. Well, I definitely agree. I'm happy to see that the general response and reaction to War Within story has been so positive, because now we can talk about the story in intelligent ways. And I really hope that all the devs who spent so much time on this and put their voice acting work and did the writing work and did the story plotting work are really seeing the positive player reception to all of that now and feeling proud of themselves for what they did. It was a good video. I'll give you a link to it right now.